In today's session, we are going to mainly focus on outline and beats. Manon, if you just want to let me know if they put that in chat for how it's going off rails so we can talk about that.
Okay.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, so first I am going to go over some outline things that you can do, different ways you can outline. We're not going to spend a lot of time on them. I'm just going to show them to you. If there's one you're interested in, you could always ask how to prompt it, or, reach out to me in Discord, same name, Nicole Broussard, and I'll let you know how I did it. But most of my stuff is in the Workflows project right here that I did link. Let me link it one more time in case anybody new came on while we were waiting. There we go. So most of my prompts are in here. All right, so let's look at, I'm not going to go into spicy stuff, but I wanted to show y'all this. Okay, so these are my short erotic stories. So each of these chapters is one whole story. And you can see I'm giving it guidance right here in the outline of what I want my beats to do. I want things to have, that crude language, the graphic descriptions, but I want my beats to focus on Arthur and his actions. So that's how the beats will get generated, with more of that focus. That is something you can do. So if you have a scene that incorporates, say, maybe a fight plus some downtime, but you want to heavily focus on that battle, let it know to focus on the battle scene. So you can give some guidance right here. And I'm just giving you a couple of examples. This is another one, just short stories and inside each chapter. And then I'll let it know because I want this one to end tragically. That was how all of these were done. So yes, I could put tragic in my style box, but I also want to emphasize this before my beats get generated, because the AI tends to be optimistic. It wants that happy ever after for everybody. So I'm letting it know right away. This tale unfolds with dire consequences and has a tragic, irreversible finale. Because sometimes if I say tragedy, it'll have the tragedy, but then, miraculously something happens and all is well. Another thing to keep in mind with this, once your beats get generated, let me see if I have one here. Okay. So once your beats get generated, I highly recommend going immediately to that last one and making sure it fits how you want that story or that scene to end. Don't even worry about the rest of these yet. Go straight to that last one and edit it to make sure it fits your vision for how that scene is going to end, whether it's a whole short story and that's the ending, just this scene or chapter, whatever. Make sure that reflects it. Because again, when I start generating prose down here, once I push this button, even though it's writing in strides of 2 beats at a time, before it ever starts generating that prose, it reads all of these beats. So if I have that ending beat saying, okay, this is the end result, this is what you are working towards, well, then it understands that. And a lot of times, this is something I actually just recently kind of clicked for me. Before, I would just work and having everything here in my scene play out the way I want it. I never actually thought about giving it that end result. And it kind of clicked after they said, oh, the AI reads all of your beats before it starts generating. Okay. So if I'm telling it, hey, here's what you're aiming for, it now has that goal. So everything previous is going to start working towards that. If it does 2 beats at a time, how does it cover an odd number of beats? It'll just be a straggler. That's pretty much it. Oh yeah, you can be very specific in the brackets. Confuse myself on which ones I've all gone through. This is another way you can structure your outline. Yes, we have, you can't see it here. Oh yeah, you can. So you'll see the format that you have to have here. You actually don't need the colon after Act 1. But you need the Act 1 for sure. That's what says, okay, here's the start of the outline. And you need the Chapter 1, colon, and the same for each subsequent chapter. So that is the format that you need. So you see, I have that. I have my Act 1. I have my Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 formatted just how I need it. But I can change the formatting inside of those chapters. So if you're here yesterday, you saw how I tend to like my formatting, and I will show y'all real quick on this for those that missed it. So when I generate my chapter, this is what I put in my synopsis box, because I know I want my chapter formatted like this. So I just go ahead and tell it and prompt it to do that right away. So my chapter is going to have the format that it needs, excuse me, the Act 1, Chapter 1, but it's also going to have day and time, setting and location, tone, and I'm telling it, yeah, you're going to have that needed chapter format, but you're also going to have this inside that chapter. So there's endless ways to really format your chapter. This one is just, generating 10 beats per chapter. Another method I really like, and I'm just going to use rewrite outline for this, is, let me copy my prompt. I'm going to have it do scene and sequel. And then this is what you can also do, is you can tell it the tense and POV that you want. So if you want that first person from whoever's POV, you can prompt for that in your outline so that whenever the beats get generated, it follows that more. I'm just going to copy this and y'all can see how we can change this up. I'm just going to put that into the rewrite outline box, change things up a little bit. So now I'm asking for scene and sequel development. That's what I'm used to writing, before I used AI. And then I'm still asking it for that daytime, setting a location, and then just giving it some guidance, avoid the pronouns, write in third person, simple past tense, and generating that 10 beats again. So we'll click that real quick. And this is just to reinforce, it's not, there are so many areas that you can have a lot of control and start guiding the AI. You're not just stuck with the style box on guiding it. I can guide it more for each chapter. I can guide it once I get to the beats with a beat header. So you see here, it's just rewriting everything, now doing my scene and sequel, plus the other things that I asked for, along with those 10 chapter beats. And let me check the chat real quick, because I saw some questions come in. So you can definitely be as specific as you want in the brackets. You can ask for all kinds of things. If you create your own beats, how do I instruct? What do you mean by a factoid? And we are going to work on the beats here shortly. I'm going to show y'all a few different ways to do it. So you can see here, I've also put some guidance in my beat header. So it'll take this into account. I can put additional guidance in individual beats. If I want to switch up to another person's POV, I can put that here. If you can master the beats, you have so much more control over getting that vision that you have for your story. Because again, we have 2,000 words to play with here in the box. So it's okay. I know it's annoying. Trust me, I've been there. I wanted a bigger outline box too. But keep in mind, you can keep that outline simple, but then put all of the details right here in this beats box. Naked dialogue, we were playing with this because we were tired of the random dialogue tags. So we were just playing around with this. Avoid action beats. This is one of those instances where the AI does not view things the way we view it. We view an action beat by actual action. If I tell the AI to use action beats, it's going to do those constantly. He said, comma, running his hands through his hair, or she said, comma, clenching her fit. It's going to put those little participial and adverbial phrases at the end of them. So if I tell it to avoid action beats, it stops doing those phrases. Now, most accurate doesn't care. Most accurate's going to have them anyways. It doesn't listen to this. But naked dialogue was just to help try to get rid of those dialogue tags, because we were tired of, murmured, whispered, all of those things. So it was one version we were playing around with. So you can. I do, honestly, it depends on my story for my outline. If I'm asking it, for those 10 beats right here, that's great. You can ask it for just 5, so it has less to focus on whenever it's generating the actual beats. I do it where I just have my simple paragraphs, whatever. It depends on the story, how I'm feeling, what I think it needs to actually focus on and do. Play around with it. I'm just giving y'all some options so y'all see y'all aren't locked in to one method. Okay, so the Prose created storylines, absent effects, ahead in beats. So I think we might be able to work on that for you. Does anybody have a question about the outline before we move on to beats? I've given y'all some examples there. Do y'all understand how you can use the style box, the outline box, and the beat header to all offer some additional guidance? Again, you can focus on different things. So your style box might have some overall things that you want for the story. Your outline box could have that little portion in the outline right here that's telling it to focus on such and such, and, you know, drag this out, whatever you need. And then, of course, in your beats, you have some additional style guidance. So yeah, I would use that if you want to work inside ChatGPT to expand your beats. And the next one I'm fixing to go over, let me grab it. Okay, so this is what I'm going to be showing y'all. Oops, sorry. This part right here, the ways you can improve beats, is what we're going to be going over now. I'm going to save number 1 because that's the most time consuming. That is my preferred way, obviously, because I like to be difficult. But we're going to go over the other ones real quick, just so you can get some ideas on things. I'm just checking chat again. Sorry, y'all. I'm trying to make sure I catch up with all the things so I don't skip ahead. All right, covered that. Usually the AI has a very distinctive tone. So you can do, again, I recommend starting with a simple style box, just doing like the POV intents, and then going through the AI, the model that you like, and seeing how it outputs things. I've really been liking the output that way. And it's closer to my actual voice, so it's easier for me to edit. Versus in the past where I loaded it up like this, it just, all the models kind of sound the same and something is just off about it. Whereas now if I say I just want third person past tense, that's it. It's working really well for each model's unique style and bringing that out. But there is the match my style. So I can put up to 2,000 words of my writing here inside this match my style. Let me grab something real quick. All right, so you have the 2,000 words to use in Match My Style. Obviously, what I'm putting in here is not close to it, but I can't find the other scene for my mafia to put in here. So this was just an opening chapter for, this is actually the story I learned how to use Sudowrite with. So, but this was the opening chapter that I had in mind and wrote myself. So I'm just going to go through this process so y'all can see it in action.
Did they fix that thing that we can send into the document and not lose everything yet?
I do not know. I usually don't do
I'm
it.
scared to do it.
So you'll get this long output first, and this is like really good. So what Manal was just talking about is we recommend saving this if you like it, you know, read through it, see if you like it. But if you click this send to doc, if they haven't fixed it yet, I'm not even going to test it out. But if they haven't fixed it yet, then after I click send to doc, all of this is going to disappear and then I have to start over. So I'm just going to copy this way. So it's copied. And then I'm going to edit it. So I know it's copied and saved, just waiting for me to paste it somewhere. So in this long version, I like to edit it heavily. So I'm just going to look through this real quick. I'm going to delete this because I want to have full control over whose POV it is on my own. I want to be able to control that with each chapter. And generally, when I'm doing this, a lot of times I'm erasing like the second sentence. I don't need it. Like this one, don't really want that. So go through, just change up anything you don't agree with, delete things you don't like, you don't want for that story. And again, make sure whatever story you pasted in here, writing, fits the same story that is currently inside your Sudowrite thing. You know, you don't want a sweet rom-com around the holidays whenever your story that you're actually writing is a thriller, you know? So make sure it matches your story. And I'm going to show you what I actually do instead of doing this, but I want to walk you through this in case this is your preference. Okay, so this is all good. And I'm just going to click next. And it's going to compress that down to the 40 words needed for the style box. So you can see it actually gave me 71. So I would need to change some of this. So I can change this one easily enough. Don't need that because I will have dialogue later. Actually, I don't want any of this. There we go. So now once I've got that down, and typically it does do the 40 words pretty spot on. Once I'm ready, I'm happy with all this, I can just click insert right here and it's going to insert that into my style box. And then since I copied, just to show y'all, since I copied that long version, I can now go over here and just paste that in and have that for reference or whatever I wanted to do. The way I actually use Match My Style is different. This one isn't a good example since it isn't in paragraph format, but I'm going to go ahead and copy it just so you can see. So when I'm using Match My Style, the only thing I'm really focusing on is getting that mood and tone for my story. So instead of hunting down a writing sample that matches the story I'm writing, all I do is take whatever chapter I am working on. I take that chapter summary and I put that inside Match My Style. Because again, all I'm caring about is my tone and mood for that chapter. I know everything else. I know what kind of POV and tense and all of that I want to use. If I want some action in a scene. So this is just giving me the little nuance. So I can easily change this up. Again, I'm not having to track down some writing that matches the story, but however, I'm easily to change or more easily able to change up the tone just using that little chapter summary. So it works very well for quickly changing up my style box as needed as I progress through my story. And again, I would go through here, just make the changes I need, click next, and it would compress. So that is a way to get your ideal style in more. All of that being said, those are steps towards your voice. In my opinion, your author voice, your style comes in the most when you start editing. That is really whenever you can change everything up and make it yours. We are going to create a chapter 1 and we will go through these beats real quick, show you the ways, various ways you can do things. I'm just going to generate some beats. So you have a couple of things you can do. And again, this is listed out here. We're not going to do the first one yet. That'll be the one we end the class with. So sometimes, I might not have an idea of how I want that scene to carry out. And we're not going to run through this because you'll have to then wait for me to generate all the prose. But what I do is if I have absolutely no idea how I want my scene playing out, I'm just going to generate some prose inside Best Prose. I use Best Prose, first of all, because I like its output generally. Second of all, because I know it's going to give me ideas. Best Prose isn't going to follow those beats perfectly. So it's going to throw in some twist or new ideas for me. So after I've generated a Best Prose, I will read through it. And that usually gives me some good ideas. Once I've read through, I can say, oh, I really like this, or it might give me some brand new ideas, or I can say, I really don't want this. And then I will go back in, edit those beats to reflect my ideas now. Another thing you can do, this isn't as easy to do now that it's a vertical scroll, but before we had horizontal scrolls. So if you're okay with using up the words, what I've done before is I will generate a second one for the same chapter, and I will generate beats again. And again, this was easier whenever we had side by side. And since it's no longer side by side, I'm just going to copy this, go back to that original one to do it this way. So here I can actually start combining these two. Like if I see something really good, just to make these lengthier. So that is one way. You're going to use a lot of words, yes, but that is an option, especially for those who are just having trouble coming up with some ideas. So there's that way. Let me make sure I'm on track here. Yeah, got that. Perfect. So another thing you can do, and I've already showed y'all, you could take that, there's that prompt you can take into ChatGPT. So I can tell ChatGPT, let me copy this and I'll show y'all. Now this doesn't work for spicy content. Keep that in mind. I'm just going to copy this prompt, put it ahead of those generated beats. And so I'm asking Chat to expand the beats that SE or Sudowrite generated. I don't know why I'm calling it SE all of a sudden lately, but I'm asking Chat to expand those for me. And this is similar to the plugin that I created. This is what it'll do. But again, I'm not going to release that plugin until everybody has access to it. But you'll see ChatGPT will start expanding on things. And then I can take all of that inside Sudowrite. And above all, make edits, y'all. I mean, yes, I'm going to copy this into but I would then read through and make some changes. That's your first step in making your voice come out and everything. Let's see. So we had 262 words here. I just want to compare the difference. 262 words. I didn't compare what this was. Let's see. And now we're at 632 words. So that was from using the ChatGPT prompt. And again, as soon as plugins are available to everybody, you can do this inside Sudowrite, because that is the prompt that I use for the plugin. So you'll be able to do it right there. So that is yet another way. And again, go through, make your changes. Make sure we've covered them all. All right. So one more, and then I'm going to show you what I like to do. So yet another way you can do it is I can do this in layers. So let's say, you know, I brought this from ChatGPT, so I can use this, or I can do this next step just using the regular Sudowrite generated stuff. But I'm going to show you how layering would work. So I got the expanded beats from chat. Just going to copy this down here. And this is one of those things, y'all see how that's one giant paragraph? That's because I just pasted it. It's a bug they've been working on. So you want to shift paste so it doesn't do that giant paragraph. Let me put some spaces here. So now that those expanded beats are here, I can actually start using these rewrite tools or laser tools. And I recommend playing around with it, see which ones you like. My go-to is, I'm just going to click on here so you can see. My go-to is show, not tell, and more descriptive. However, there are times I want to use the describe button, especially, you know, just my describing the throne room or when I'm trying to set the scene. But play around with all of these and see which ones you like. So if I want to describe this, and again, if you don't want them all, you can toggle the ones off that you don't want. I tend to just leave them all on. So now I can take portions of this and start expanding this. And I actually really like all of this. You know, it's really getting specific and telling me everything. So I could insert that in, delete that so it flows better. And I can continue to do that for each of these. We just did that, but we could, you know, rewrite this to be more descriptive, show, not tell. So I would go through all of these beats. Let me see. So I could rewrite this one, and I could do show, not tell, or some more inner conflict. I'm going to do more show, not tell. And again, I would just go through all of this and expand it. So that's using the laser tools. And you could use it layering if you want to take some ChatGPT expanded beats in there, or I could do this with the simple regular beats. You know, these beats right here, I can do the exact same thing. Just copy these, put them down here, and start using all of the laser tools to expand them better. My preferred way of doing things, and some of you may have seen the screenshot from this, my preferred way is just adding in the details, how I see that scene playing out. So let's look at outline and we'll work through one together real quick. Okay, so we'll do chapter 3. Now this works best when you have a specific vision in mind. And again, I could have told it to focus on something in particular before I generate my beats. Let's see, I'm reading through this one real quick. If I could generate the beats, if I don't have any idea how to start, I'll do that for y'all. Again, since I have 2,000 words, this is where I'm going to start bringing in all of my plot points, the details, every way I want to be specific. I'm going to start telling the AI here. So let me just check something real quick. Okay, so I'm going to tie these. I'm essentially going to tie these two in because that's more of how I see it playing out. We were playing with the outline on this one to show the different outlines. Okay, so under here is where I'm going to do it so we can start seeing the difference. First of all, I know I could put a POV, but I'm still debating on whose POV I want for this story. So I'll put that, and I will focus on, for this scene right here, we're going to focus on Jackson's desperation to free himself from the Slayers and Alicia's mistreatment by her fellow Slayers. So that's just guiding it of what I really wanted to pull out of the subsequent beats. Am I missing any questions, Manal? Before we actually dive into this?
Just came in and I was trying to answer that person. Imran was asking about the AI progress the story towards a goal. Sometimes I find it usually ramble on which details that aren't relevant to the story, or you overreach the narrative and then rush to the goal. So I'm telling him that he's in full control of the AI in the story. He has to really tell the AI when he wants these things to show up in the story. So you want to explain that better?
Yeah. So that is when you would start using that guidance. So again, I like to use that guidance and outline. So before I generate my beats, I'm letting it know, I want you to focus on this when you generate my beats. That's how you can start helping it. And then again, go to your last beat and make sure that ends the way you want the scene to end. And then start working towards it with your other beats and fixing it. And then you can prompt in the header to focus on something in particular or to draw something out. So have that in there. And I saw somebody mention looping. Looping is, again, if y'all look in Discord, you'll see my make me a sandwich, cook a 5-course meal thing. Looping happens when you're not asking for enough details generally. It doesn't matter how big it is, but that generally happens. You're not asking for the AI to do enough. So it gets to that point where it's covered all of the things you told it to cover, but now it has more words that it needs to fulfill. So it starts grabbing things from elsewhere, and that'll result in the looping. Yes, definitely. Again, I know I sound like a broken record, y'all. 2,000 words, and this is just for a scene, chapter, whatever you want to call it, however you want to think of it. I mean, this is more than your outline just for this one chapter. This is really, you bring in your lines of dialogue, you tell it what you want each character to do. So let's try to work through this. This is how I imagine this scene going. And because I played around with the outline, it doesn't fit smoothly, but I'm gonna tell it. Can y'all see everything good so I don't have to read out loud? Y'all let me know if y'all need me to read.
No, all is good.
I'm just imagining, that's all I'm doing. That's why I'm taking my time, y'all. I am picturing this scene in my head of how I want it to play out. And I can tell you right now, if I generate this in most accurate, it's likely going to say this word for word. But again, I am being specific because I don't want it to describe a black altar with, 6 feet wide or something like that. So I'm being specific so it doesn't get new ideas and bring those into the story and mess up my vision. So if I were to use most accurate and it brought this in, obviously I would just delete it or, maybe change some wording. But again, it's one of those things, if I don't mention it and the AI decides it wants to describe the altar, but I haven't told it how the altar is going to look, well, guess what? It's going to make up its own mind of how that altar looks. And it's not that much work. When you compare, you're still doing the same thing when you're writing by hand. You're putting all of this in, but yet you're also getting the AI's help whenever you come to a point where you're kind of blocked on an idea. And of course, helping you write faster, especially for those with disabilities that have trouble typing and, or maybe the speaking to text and all of that. This really helps. But once you're comfortable with it, I mean, it's taking so long because I showed y'all several ways. But normally here in my beats, I only spend about 20 minutes on my beats. But the more time you spend on it, the less editing I have to do later on. But again, it's one of those things you have to kind of play with your workflow. And also, again, if this was something I already had the scene half written or the story half written, I would be using auto write and guided write, just typing out, and that might be the flow for you. So if I wanted to, just for example, we're going to jump away from this real quick. I'm just going to start typing. And I know this isn't perfect, y'all. I'm just making this up on the spot.
So Nicole,
Mm-hmm.
do you mind if I jump in and help answer Andrew's question too?
Absolutely. Go ahead, please.
So I've written a few books now through Sudowrite. And for me, it has sped up my process entirely, but I'm the opposite of Nicole. Like, Nicole is a maximalist. She totally fills out everything to the max. I'm a minimalist. I kind of just get it done. My editing process is a lot more severe than Nicole's. Like, Nicole will get generally close to what she wants. My editing process, because I don't do all this, I'm a pantser. I just want to get it down. I'll edit it later. And so like but even then, I have a first draft. Like, I've never been able to do NaNoWriMo. This was my first year I actually did a book in a month. And I have to thank Sudowrite for that. It's still a process. It's a junior, and it's a junior writing assistant, you guys. it's not going to know. You have to guide it step by step by step. It doesn't know what it's doing. It can't read your mind. You know, it really doesn't know how to write a story. It just knows where it's supposed to go. So, but yes, I absolutely believe like it has sped up my writing process entirely. Like it is a learning process, but once you start getting a workflow, you can start pushing out books a lot faster than just writing it by hand.
And I agree with that totally. That's my method as well.
And that's what we mean when we say, you know, we're not just trying to get you into more classes. When we say, hey, attend these classes with the other teachers, it's because we all have different methods.
Yeah, you have to remember the classes are free. We're not making money by teaching you guys classes, you know, like we're doing this to help you guys so that you understand the program. And so like, and you guys don't have to pay for it. Like this is one of the, if you use so many of the other programs, they make you pay for the classes. And this is one of the ones, like I tell people all the time, the classes are free. Join the classes. You will learn a workflow that works for you, and it speeds it up. It's an amazing program. And I if you'd asked me 6 months ago when I was trying to write pen and paper still, this has changed it. This has changed everything for me. So
All right, so if you are a pantser, this might be a method that you prefer. Honestly, I use both. I use Story Bible a lot to get my books done, but this, what I'm fixing to show you, is actually my preferred way. But I'm waiting on them to make some updates before I stick with this fully. But I do this for a lot of my short stories. Like my 45-page books, I can just easily do that here. And it flows very nice. This way I'm about to show you is the way I feel like I am doing the writing, and I'm just asking for some help occasionally. Okay, I'm stuck here. You know, what can I do? So you'll see I have just started the chapter. I mean, I could keep going until I ran out of ideas. I know how I want this scene to further play out, but for time's sake, I'm going to stop it here. I've gone to my write settings, and in key details, I'm going to tell it it's a young adult fantasy with vampires and slayers. I could give it some more information because it might start drawing conclusions until this scene happens in the Slayer Sanctuary, and I'm just letting it know what she is doing now. So that's the important point. If you use key details, the important thing is to put your genre, and then you kind of want to give it some information. Okay, what is happening? If there was something that just happened that you needed to know to continue writing this scene, put that sentence here. And then if there's a way, something you want to guide it towards, you can also put that here. So I'm just letting it know this scene happens in the Slayer Sanctuary as Alicia declares her intent to participate in the upcoming Slayer initiation ritual by placing her blood on the skull of the first Slayer. So just giving it some background here. And you can do all kinds of things right here in this little spot. So I've put that information here. Again, I've started the scene. And when you're using write, it reads back up to 1,000 words. So I've started it. I can change my tone here. We're going to do, you know, I'm going to leave it at ominous. And I can do auto write. So I can just have it start picking up right here. Move this out of the way. And then I can start picking up things right here. So I could insert it, continue typing, make whatever changes I need. So this is a way, if you're a pantser, discovery writer, if you want to do more of the work than the AI, this is probably going to be your preferred way of doing things. Because I can make all these changes. I can continue writing. I can decide if I want to use guided write. And I have some videos of this on my YouTube channel to break down all of this. So you can look at those if you'd like. That's another method. You don't have to use Story Bible, y'all. Yes, it's popular. I use it, but I also use it this way. So just keep that in mind. All right, back to the beats. I'm describing the altar. I'm going to do my opening, and then...
Are you still there, Nicole? Because we don't hear you.
Yep, I'm still here. So you'll see I have repeated myself a lot, right? Well, I can't spell today. I am sorry. You know, I'm not even going to try on this, I don't think. Oh, there we go. I would just keep going like this. I'm just going to put in all of the lines of dialogue that I want. Because again, I have 2,000 words. I'm going to use it. I'm going to tell the AI, this is how I want my scene to play out. So I repeat myself a lot to keep it from getting confused. Like I always say, I don't want to give it the chance to get it confused. Am I perfect? No, there's still times it gets things wrong. And I can look back and see, oh, I worded this incorrectly. And again, the amount, you just have to kind of think about it. Remember, if you hover here, you can see. So each beat's going to turn into 1 to 200 words. Each beat, not the stride. Your first stride is typically about 400, I think more like 600 words for your first stride. So you're going to want the AI to have enough details to actually fill that word count. So if you're looking through here, I might decide, you know what, I'm not sure if that's going to fill up the word count, but at the same time, I'm just like, you know what, okay, it might loop slightly, that's all right. Or I can say, oh, this might be too much. I need to break this up into more beats. It's something you kind of get a feel for the more you play around with it, but only if you're doing it this way. So if you're just generating those beats and going forth, a lot of times that's just a matter of combining things like this to make that beat thicker. But when you start playing around with it like this, really being specific, telling it all those things, you start to get that feel of how thick your beats need to be for what you're asking it to do. Don't use pronouns. I have some in here. Obviously, I would actually go back through and change all this. I don't care how it reads. I know it reads funny, but that also, again, prevents confusion. It's me not giving the AI a chance to get confused over who is doing what. I would just keep going like this. I could tell it, give it lines of dialogue. And I'm going to do it this way right here. This is lame. I know, y'all. I haven't thought of the dialogue that I want. I just want to give y'all an example. So I can do all that. So I'm putting my scene details. I can put all of the actions, and then I can put how the character reacts and just keep going like that. So again, in total, I would say I spent about 20, 30 minutes just doing my scene. And then I would start generating. So you can see the difference in how things look when there's SE generated, Sudowrite generated versus how specific you can be. These are very vague. You're introducing her and, she's assigned to watch over him. But now I'm saying, okay, here is my introduction to Alicia. Here is exactly what she is doing. Here is exactly how she starts meeting Jackson. And I will go through that and put all of the details for my vision for everything. Does that make sense? Did I just completely confuse and lose everybody?
Sense.
Do y'all have any questions about any of this? And yeah, I know people look at it and say it's a lot of work. So is writing, y'all. Writing is a lot of work. I started writing in 2019. It took me, gosh, I don't think my first book got published until 2021, maybe. Writing is hard.
Yeah.
And that's, there's this uproar. Oh, AI, you're not really a writer if you use AI. Okay, there's two ways to do that. And please, oh God, I'm horrible when I talk. People take the wrong. I am not insulting anyone when I say this. Please don't take it that way. But there is a complete difference between clicking a bunch of buttons, having the AI generate stuff for you, if that's what you need, because I know there are people with disabilities. This is what they need. That is great. I am so happy. It makes me want to tear up. I am happy that people are able to get their stories out that way. But yet you can also put a lot of work into it. So it's not really as simple as people think. Y'all have seen this. Y'all are having trouble getting it to do certain things, right? So it's not just a simple, oh, I'm going to type this in and tell it to write this story. I'm going to click this button and everything's going to be great. So yeah, it takes work. And the way I look at it too is you have two choices, kind of like Tabby was saying earlier. She does the majority of her editing later, and that's when she really makes the story hers. So you have two options. Spend all of your time here or the majority of your time here, making those edits, guiding the AI, or spend the time later on in the editing phase and bringing out your vision there. It's up to you and whatever flow works better for you. So yes, it's a lot of work, but the more work you put into it, whether it's while using the AI or while you're editing, the more work you put into it, the better your story is going to be. Yes, either way, you're spending the time. It's a matter of where and on what. And do I do this for every single chapter? No, y'all. There are times when I'm just lazy or I don't have that vision. I'm like, I just need this one chapter done. And I'm just going to click to generate beats. I don't care what it says. I'm clicking to generate prose and I will take care of what's needed in edits. And then there's lots of times in my edits where I have spent all of this time coming, doing this, but maybe during my editing, something wasn't right, or I see the scene needs to be extended, or maybe a twist came and now I need to redo this chapter. It happens. That's what happens when you're writing. So I might have to just come in and generate that chapter again. And a lot of times I'm not going to spend the time to do all of this once more just to regenerate that chapter. I will change what I need to change in the outline so it knows the twist of whatever has changed. And then I will just generate that chapter and again work through my edits. Fix it in post. Yeah, right. And I love AI. So like I said, I started writing in 2019, and some people know this story about me. I just recently got out of a almost 20-year, very emotionally, physically abusive marriage. Y'all, in 2019, I have 4 kids, so it's hard to, I wasn't in a good place in 2019. I was doing nothing but laying in bed. My kids were old enough to take care of themselves, but I was doing nothing but laying in bed, daydreaming about, oh my gosh, there's got to be something else. There's got to be a better life than this. So I started daydreaming about what an actual good, caring, loving relationship would look like. But in those days, I was going to bed. I didn't care if I woke up. I really didn't. And then as I was just wishing for something better, the story ideas started coming to me. And that's how I actually got into writing in 2019. They stayed in my head. So I finally decided, you know what? I'm going to start writing it. Why not? I've always enjoyed writing stuff. English was my favorite class. I love to read. I'm just going to see what happens just to get this story out of my head. And I started writing, and I actually started caring if I woke up again. But I still couldn't finish the books. I'm the type of person, if you saw, I'll show you the Scrivener stuff that I was using. So like you'll see I have all of these formats here in my Scrivener thing, because that's what I was doing back whenever I was actually, writing by hand before AI. So I had this like 10 essential scenes because I followed the snowflake method. Well, back in those days, all I could do was I could tell you who my characters were. I can tell you how they met, the climax, how the story ended, and I could write down all of these important scenes to tell my story. But my mind would just blank when it came to all of the filler stuff, everything that tied all of those important scenes together. So I had so many half-written stories, but they weren't good enough to publish. They weren't ready yet. They were just all of these important scenes, and that's it. Then I found Sudowrite, and I've actually been able to get those stories done. I have a ton of them now, that were in that half-written phase before Sudowrite. Now they're written and waiting to be edited and published. So that's what it has done. So there's so many people coming to Sudowrite or AI for different reasons. Again, there's the people with the disabilities. They need it to help them get their stories down on paper. There's people like me. I don't have the imagination sometimes. I really need that help in getting those other scenes together. That's where it stands in for me. And that's really why this is my favorite form, when I think, writing it out and then just asking the AI for a boost. There's people who want to tell a story, but they don't know how. They don't have a clue where to start. The AI can help them. They'll put in their pieces and the AI will put that story together for them. Again, is it perfect? No. I honestly don't think any of our methods are perfect. we all have things that we dislike, I think, about our methods that we wish we could improve at some point. I would ask Miss Lynn, Tabby, Chris, anybody else that's, done some novels with it. I would ask them to chime in on that. But that's the way I feel. Like, I still see some flaws in my methods, but I know it'll get better the more I play around with and experiment. So that's really why we say I know it's frustrating. We have been there. We really have. Somebody commented in a review, hey, you make it look so easy. That's because y'all are seeing us for an hour and we're trying to just show y'all everything. So yeah, the last 2 days I've gone through and shown y'all a bunch of stuff. Looked like basically we'd have a whole story done within an hour and a half, but that wasn't doing the editing. That wasn't spending the time putting in all of these details, making it mine. It wasn't spending the time to change up my characters as needed. So y'all are just getting a glimpse of our process here. So please don't feel bad if y'all ask questions. If you have questions, let us know. Don't feel like you're bugging us. If you say, Nicole, your method sucks. I can't get any of this to work like you said it works for you. Attend John's class. Attend Miss Lynn's class. They have different methods and some things should click for you. But please, I'm begging y'all, keep trying because, again, I know how much this changed my life and helped me. So I would really, really love it for that to happen to all of y'all as well. And now that I have gone on a complete tangent that I am very sorry for, do y'all have any questions on this? I know beats struggle or something people struggle with. I still struggle with it. I just do the best I can. Again, my main focus is telling the AI my details for how this scene needs to come out. I know it's not going to come out perfect. I'm okay with that because I know I can fix it in editing. So don't be so hard on yourselves if it's not coming out perfect.
Thank you for sharing. That's a wonderful story. I think we all have some sort of story to tell, and it'll all come out at some point. But thank you. And I do have a couple of questions.
Okay.
So one I wrote down on text, but I take it that the synopsis and the outline and the characters, when you're filling that out, it's chapter specific and you should change it for the next chapter.
You can. That is one method. I want to say John does that. I'm not sure. But you can. Mine tends to be, my synopsis is my whole story, unless I'm doing those separate projects like I had talked about yesterday.
Okay.
My outline will generally have my whole story. But then characters, yes. So characters, they're sitting in my usual format. Because again, this is one of my older versions. But something I learned from Mindy, another user, as I'm going, after I've done those introductory chapters, I would delete some stuff. I'm looking to see what's here. So in this particular one, I would delete talking about her scar because it's important. It's something that gets brought up a lot in the story, but it's also something I can easily add. But in this instance, if I leave it in here, every single time the AI talks about Alicia, it's going to talk about her scar, and I don't want that. It's easier for me to delete it here, add it in where I need it later.
Okay.
So like Mindy, you can't see it here. I'm looking for one. Okay. This still isn't great. But you know how normally your first sentence is describing their hair color, their eye color, all of that.
Okay.
Well, once you've introduced your characters, you really don't need that. So you can delete that line so the AI isn't constantly referencing their piercing blue eyes or her raven black hair, things like that.
Right.
And you can also still add in the lines. So for this instance, I could say for this chapter right here, Jackson has been captured by Slayers while he was out on a mission. Something like that. And then I would change it as needed for each story, and I could do that for each character,
Okay. I
That's
think
it.
on your outline, you had, it showed the various chapters and where each chapter was going. But once you've written 4 or 5 chapters, do you leave that stuff on? Does the prose and everything, when you're generating beats and all that stuff, does it know that in your outline there that that's all been passed? or does it need that for knowledge?
Okay. So that's kind of like a two-part question. So first of all, it does not read this. If I'm on chapter 5, it's not looking at any of this.
Oh, okay.
Chapters, how is it? You said, we say they don't talk to each other. So
So you don't need to remove it either.
right. You don't need to remove it. Some people do because they want that extra room. You know, they're not like me. I do the small chapter chunks, but some people like to try to fill this up as much as possible, focusing on that one chapter.
Okay.
And they'll delete those. So if you do delete those, the only thing I say is make sure you keep the chapter headings. Because
Yes, okay. Keep the previous ones, even if they're used, they should be there.
correct, yeah, because the AI, otherwise, if I deleted all these, the AI is going to view.
Chapter 1 again.
Yeah, the AI thinks this is chapter 1. It doesn't matter that it
Okay.
says chapter 5.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and it's fine if you're used to the program and you know, like, okay, maybe you're fine with having one chapter 1 and everything is essentially going to be your chapter 1. You'll just rename it right here, to whatever chapter number or title you want it to be. It's one of those things you can play around with.
Well, I've already written the first chapter over 3,000 words, basically on my own, and so I've been using your laser things up top and not using the story Bible, but that'll come in handy for subsequent chapters, I'm sure.
Yeah.
How
are you
I had
liking it?
one more question though. On yesterday, you said that Sudowrite didn't seem to have a problem with you having a couple of accounts, particularly in your case, you had so many different things on the go, and you just needed the words and the flexibility. But if I was working, or I am working on a long novel, but for words, does it make sense to have a second account and just kind of copy things over and use that for the subsequent paragraphs if you run out of words on the first count?
You can. I wouldn't recommend it just because that would be a pain to copy everything over.
Okay.
I know in my instance, I did my second account originally because it was cheaper to have that second account versus buying words, and I was needing to buy extra words a lot.
Right.
So it was easier for me to just have two 90K accounts.
And I think I'm going to be in the same problem probably.
And then once, I started teaching, well, it was easier for me to just use one of those accounts for all of my classes. And then that way I could keep my personal projects separate. Of course, y'all still see me dive into those constantly all the time anyways. But it'd also be great for pen names. Like, let's say you write horror and romance. You might want one account for all your romance stuff and then one account for all your horror stuff.
Yeah, no, that's not me. My first book, I was character building in chapter 2 and realized that his story was more important. So I went off and did that. And now I'm working on a second book, but the original one is going to be book 3. But they're long novels. So not, they're all political action, thriller type things. So yeah, not the same genre that you're into. And I respect that. Thank you very much, Nicole.
You're welcome. So how were you liking using the write function? Did you find that a pretty good flow for you?
I've been just listening to past episodes of these lessons and went through your 1, 2, and 300 this week. I've been listening and not really using it, but I took your advice yesterday and created my third story just to see what Sudowrite would do. And I learned a lot just from that. So you're totally right that you just need to get on there and try something new, not your current book, but something quite new. You learn so much. But I really see the value of this. It gets rid of writer's block. And once I start on something, it seems like I go into the editing panel or just copy it to Word and I write for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and I just having fun. I just enjoy it so much. So this is wonderful. Thank you.
Good. I'm glad the write, it just really clicks for me to be able to use that. It's not possible for all my stories, but I love that flow, and some future updates that they have planned will make that easier. Like they do have it planned to where when you're inside using the auto write and all of this, it will see what your style box is. It will see your characters box, and that will make it a lot easier since now all we have is that little key details box to use.
Perfect. Thank you so much,
You're welcome.
and for sharing.
Thank you. All right. All right, y'all don't hop off just yet, but I do need to wrap up the recording and then I can answer some more questions and chat if for those who want to hang out, but I do have to train myself to do my proper goodbye for the recording. I want to let people know Miss Lynn and I are fixing to put out the application for January's book in a month. There are some changes to it. Miss Lynn, would you like to speak on the changes?
Well, you can. It's going to be longer this time. We're going to do it as a quarterly thing, but don't worry. When you're in and you stay in. But we do really want to emphasize that what we want is for you to actually finish a book and publish it. And that is our goal, and we want to do everything we can to make that happen.
So before book in a month, it really started as just that. Let's get your book out in a month. Our first round of participants were our little guinea pigs, and they were happy to offer some feedback. And we realized it's not possible. People spend that first month learning their process, trying to figure out, tie all the steps in together, seeing what works for them. So then we did 2 months. It worked better. There were still some hiccups. So we thought a quarter would be perfect. That was 3 months. So people might finish. It's going to tie into the 4-day writing series that I had done. I believe Miss Lynn's going to do them too. We're going to kind of rotate that. That will be a requirement to do book in a month, is you have to attend that 4-day writing series or watch the videos. We understand people can't make the classes, but you will at least need to watch those videos. But essentially the way we're imagining this, we're starting this in January again as the quarter thing. We took this month off. That's why we didn't have them. So you'll attend that 4-day writing series. You'll go through book in a month for those 3 months. Again, during that first month, for sure, people are typically learning their process. And like Miss Lynn says, once you're in book in a month, you're there, you stay. We don't kick you out unless you just turn into like a tyrant or something. So the way I imagine it is people are going to start, in that quarterly phase. And then I think by the end of the year, everybody that sticks with their process and starts improving it, they will improve enough to be able to get those books done in a month or two pretty easily, or regularly at least.
We hope to speed up your process. And another change that we're making is we're going to have 2 classes a week. And one will be an earlier class and one will be a later class. So that we'll try to fit into your schedule, because I know we have worldwide community here.
And our past participants, y'all, they're the sweetest people. I don't know if Chris is still on. She's one of them. Manon is in there. So we have this great little community of people that have done this. They're experienced with the program. At the same time, we want to reiterate, this is not meant to be a thing of, oh, how do I use the character box? It's not meant to be those classes. That's why we have the 101s, 201s, 301s. Our purpose in book in a month is helping you find your workflow so that's less frustrating for you and you can get through and actually get your book published. So
you should already be familiar with generating the prose.
Yeah.
Using the software.
Yeah. Okay, again, I'm just going to stop the recording here. I will answer some more questions and hang around for everybody. But those who can't hang around, thank y'all very much for attending today, and let us know if you have any questions. Bye, everyone.